He's in a separate tier for them.
The Department of Education called him. He was in on Friday. We was asking how come maybe they can how come now you're 99% capacity in the third lockdown you were 20. They had all the answers. They
He's in a separate tier for them.
They had all the answers.
Who had all the answers?
Maybe they can have it.
There's a photo of your brother in the Tribune last week. I get the Tribune for free a week late.
He's the one that lives in London.
That was one.
Yeah.
£53,000 for the Haderach or
Did
something.
well, yeah.
What is Haderach?
To do Shiur people.
Quite impressive.
Sorry, you're on Zwift later.
You also put in a whole ad or somewhere to thank everybody. Was that an advertiser in the Tribune? I can't remember which.
Done a lot of
Home, they're coming to me.
Who is it?
I don't know.
How much charging?
RYDCC. Heard of them?
How much charging
in your house? To do what?
140 quid.
Right. Is it 5-2 yet? Nope. Got a minute to do.
Money back.
What do you need to do?
Bike fit.
No, it's not.
What's the
It's
bike
actual
fit?
work.
Get all the angles ready and make sure it's
How much does it cost?
My back, my neck.
£100. Between £110.
Who does it? King Cog.
King Cog do it. There's other people come to your house and do it. It's very much worthwhile.
Amazing. Why, you wanted to go on Zwift? I'll leave you in the dark. Last 5 minutes.
Huh?
I won't last 5 minutes.
Where's my Shiur?
Got another minute. Anybody want to say anything?
Ben will tell us about his accounts today.
What accounts? It was a get today.
Oh no.
Which I sat on. So it's on YouTube. It was a Shiloh. Husband's was 100% normal. Extreme OCD.
Right.
So can he halachically give a get?
Why? Well, what big OCD?
Extreme OCD. I show you the can't give a get.
Is he getting medical help?
That says yes, of course, but
Getting medical help for it.
nobody knows who it is. Nobody knows. Oh, Hashem may talk about it, not Lynch. Anyway. So it's Shiloh. Look,
He gave it no stuff.
yeah.
I don't understand. What's the question?
A shoita can't give a get. A shoita can't give a get. No, a shoita can't receive a get either. If a person's married to a shoita, a person's married to a shoita is in the real stock. You can't divorce them. Oh, so there's a Pesachim Shiur that discusses it.
Wasn't the husband when
Yes, okay.
What's the issue?
You're not a person's a shoita. That's
It's very particular. That tishbox has to be on the line like that.
the more says if you go to basic. Okay, it's not really right to talk about it.
Yeah, but
Someone
another share.
who's on medication for his mental health, and while the medication's
You know,
in,
this we
are they
can talk
considered
about.
a what?
One of the most unfortunate incidents in history was the cleaver get. What's interesting is nowadays, it's amazing when nowadays you've got on the internet, you can actually look it up online. Can you imagine such a thing? The cleaver get was a get that was given in Frankfurt at the time of the Vilna Gaon. Can you imagine? After the get was given, a few of the main Rabbanim of Frankfurt said the husband's crazy, and that therefore the get's not chal. And it tore Klal Yisrael apart. People would not marry from a family if you supported the get, if you were from the family that didn't support the get. Can you imagine such a thing? Okay, really getting off the point. How's it go? Right, we're starting very late. First of all, I'd like to thank Tolly. Took me time to download them, but the printing would have costed exorbitant prices. In the computer place, it's 15 pence. Here it costs him 0.3. So it's a 50th of the price. Wow.
Next year. Keep the next cycle.
Anyway, well, Baruch Hashem, we're very, very, very grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we've got the schus, even though we're undeserving. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a chodas and gives us the opportunity to learn 5 prokim, all about how to bring the Korban Pesach. And if Chas v'Shalom, I hope it doesn't happen, but on the rare chance that Mashiach does not come before Pesach, then at least we'll have done the halachas of it, and we'll have been Mekayim on the Shama poems for Seinu, which means that we'll have brought the Korban Pesach. If you need, I put down my own. Do anybody got? Okay, so actually, we have to share because in case I. But the truth is, it's more for homework to do Chazor, etc. I'm sure you all want to do Chazor. What? You want to do Chazor? That's right. In a week's time, I'll forhear you on the 6 different shittas. Right. It's a special schus. I have to say that we can't imagine how much that we're able to learn the halachas of bringing Korban Pesach. Every single day in the Beis Hamikdash, they would bring a Korban Tamid twice a day. Once in the early morning and once late in the afternoon. We were not allowed to bring almost any korban before or after the korban tamid. It's a drasha we're going to learn it in the pasuk. Mamish to lose this. If you don't get the basics clear, I say it's the Derech Hashem writes in this Akdama. If you don't get the basics clear, everything gets confusing afterwards. So you bring a korban tamid early morning and late afternoon, and you cannot bring a korban before or after. Most korbanos, most avodas were not done before or after. So most avodas were done between the first and the last tamid. So obviously you want to be in the korban tamid as early as possible, give it to the most amount of time, which is a Mishnah in Yomi exactly how early this the more does not discuss it here. And as late as possible. Why as late as possible? Can anybody guess? Right, because if somebody wants to bring a korban nadava, let's say you come to Beis Hamikdash, you say, I want to bring a korban nadava. And Tony says to you, I've already bought the korban tamid, or Yeshua, or Shalom says to you, Levi says to Levi, I've already bought the korban tamid. Can you bring your shlamim? No. So we want to bring the korban tamid as late as possible. On the other hand, there was one exception, and that was Erev Pesach. On Erev Pesach, the korban Pesach was brought after the korban tamid, and in Mitzvah Hashem one day, many Sifri Kabbalah, why was it korban Pesach was the exception to the rule that the korban Pesach was brought after the korban tamid. Write that down, not just in your fridge, on your wallet.
But when you say that at the start, there's many more people there, so you have to keep.
No, korban tamid, you bring the korban Pesach after the korban tamid. Normally you bring after. Normally you bring korbanos before the korban tamid.
On the 14th?
No, that's not the reason. You can bring korban tamid at the end on the 14th, but after. So, because of that, the logic therefore dictates that what should you bring the korban tamid early or late on Erev Pesach? Early, very good. So then, there were certain years where you had to bring it even earlier. And Erev Pesach, where time was more crowded, and that is not so easy to fit once it's clear.
This year, no?
When Erev Pesach is a Friday, why? Because then you have to shecht it and roast it before Shabbos comes in.
And this year?
Mashiach, this year, where Erev Pesach is a Shabbos, you don't need it to do it so early. Why don't you need to do it so early? Because you can't roast it on Shabbos anyway. All you can do is shecht it. You're allowed to shecht the korban Pesach on Shabbos. You're allowed to shecht the korban Pesach on Shabbos. And you roast it Motzei Shabbos. So this year, we will not be in the korban tamid so early. Why not? Because we can't roast it. But if Erev Pesach was a Friday, so then you have to get it even earlier because you can't roast it on Shabbos. That is the essence of our whole daf. The rest of it is just details in how to apply it to every single case. So let's get it very clear, very quickly. Korban tamid was the first and the last korban of the day, the exception being korban Pesach. Because of that, the korban tamid was usually brought as late as possible in order to allow many Nedarim and Nedavis to come in. The exception is Erev Pesach. We want more time to check the korban Pesach. The Hagigah was brought in the morning. We'll come to it, and it's these kinds of questions. It's kedai not to confuse things because it's going to get more complicated. And then, except for Erev Pesach, which is a Friday, we have to do it even earlier. That's the basics. Very simple. Says the Mishnah, Tamid nishchat b'shvoino mechza. You shecht it to 8.5 hours, as we obviously understand. 8.5 hours means shows manuals. So assuming that the day starts at 6 or finishes at 6, so what would be shvoino v'mechza? What time would that be? Very good, 2:30. Oh, 2:30 took me time to work that out. 2:30 in the afternoon, you shecht it. V'kol b'teisho mechza, and you finish bringing it at 3:30, 9.5 hours. It takes you an hour to bring the korban tamid. So just ask the question later, but we'll mention it now. At what time would you have bought the korban tamid? I would have bought it much later. Because once you brought the common Talmud, what did we say? You're coming in the Dom Dovis. Tesis answers, we don't want to get it too close. 3:30, you're only go from 3:30 to 6. Something is a bit complicated. We want to have plenty of time. So it's a double-edged sword. An hour from 8:30, from 8:30, 9:30 shows manias. If the day would start at 6:30 to 3:30. Now, Arbi Pesachim, on Erev Pesach, as we mentioned, we want to do more. Nishchat b'sheva mechza, kovish v'nechza. Bein b'chol, bein b'Shabbos, whether it is a weekday or a Shabbos, meaning whether Erev Pesach is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or whether Erev Pesach is a Shabbos. But Chol Erev Pesach is be'erev Shabbos. If Erev Pesach is a Friday, Nishchat b'sheshu mechza v'kol b'sheva mechza Pesach acharov. So you got 3 times between the common Talmud. On a normal day, 8.5 hours, 2:30. On Erev Pesach, 7.5 hours, 1:30. On Erev Pesach, which is a Friday, not a Shabbos, it's quite confusing, not a Shabbos and not a Sunday. But if Erev Pesach is a Friday, 12:30. I think actually that is the first diagram. Is it? Sorry, I've lost the before. It's the first diagram which they brought there. Very good, that's the first diagram. It's very, very straightforward. Says Mili, how do we know that we've been the Kohen Talmud at that time? Omar Bishra Belevi, Omar Ko, Esakeres Echot Tase Baboika, Esakeres Hashini Tase Beinu Arbaim. The word Arbaim is plural from the word Erev. What does the word Erev mean? Evening, and even more, Ovo called Simcha. All joy has been dull, meaning Ovo can mean darkness, darkness. Beinu Arbaim, Vashi, Levi, Vashi in this week's parsha of all places. Beinu Arbaim, what's Rashi say? That there are 2 darkness every day. What are the 2 darkness every day? One is at 12 o'clock because the sun gets a tiny bit darker at 12 o'clock. And what at 12:30, where's Machlokes and Rashi? 12:30 it gets a tiny bit dark because it's not as bright at 12:30 as 12 o'clock. And at nightfall. So Rabbi Shua Belevi says like this. Beinu Arbaim, he translated, we could translate Beinu Arbaim is from 12:30 till 6. He doesn't say that. He says Beinu Arbaim means in the middle of the 2 darknesses. What are the middle of the 2 darknesses? If you work it out, the darkness of 12 till 6 is 6 hours. It takes an hour to be in the Kohen Talmud. So 2.5 hours before, 2.5 hours after, so 2:30 to 3:30. Again, we're talking about a day which starts at 6 to 6. Let's get it clear. Beinu Arbaim means between the 2 darknesses. The 2 darknesses is one is 12 o'clock, one is 6 o'clock. 12 o'clock when the sun gets a tiny bit darker, 6 o'clock when the sun actually sets. Beinu Arbaim means between the 2 darknesses is at 2:30, because then you've got 2.5 hours before, and that's the second picture on the diagram where he describes a very beautiful diagram, 2.5 hours before, 2.5 hours after, 1 hour in the middle. It's in the middle of the darknesses. There is one aspect of people eager to discuss at great length, many, is that Rashi contradicts himself in a number of places. Which moment does it start getting dark? At 12 o'clock or at 12:30? Rashi here, and also in Yomi says it gets dark at 12 o'clock, because at 12:01, the sun is no longer, it's already going dark, so it's already getting a bit darker. Oh, why do we be in the Kohen Talmud by 12 o'clock? We always wait for Mincha for half an hour. It's because the walls of the Beis Hamikdash were thick, and since the walls of the Beis Hamikdash were thick, you won't be able to tell the shade so quickly. If you've got a thin piece of paper, the sun moves a tiny bit, you'll notice it. If you've got a very wide wall, it's very hard to notice the shade. That's what Rashi says here and elsewhere. Rashi in other places, it's not true. It takes half an hour for the sun to actually get a bit darker. So in fact, it's only from 12:30. And the nafkamina between these 2 explanations of Rashi is, if b'di'eved you put the Kohen Talmud between 12 and 12:30, if you're Yotzam. If you say at 12 it gets dark, it's just you don't notice it, it's fine. If it's at 12:30, okay, I don't get into it too much. No, anytime. Let's say you, yeah, you're right. These halachas, I should point out, is belechatchila. B'di'eved, you can bring the Kohen Talmud. Yeah, oh, thank you. B'di'eved, you can bring the Kohen Talmud any time in the afternoon. It's a good point. This is all lechatchila. Our mission is lechatchila, the best case scenario. But let's say that's what Tosa says, why I brought it 2 hours before. Let's say you missed the slot, 8:30, 9:30, till 6 o'clock, you're okay. So Rishon Ben Levi found as a pasuk. Let's see the pasuk again more. Chalkeyu, divide the afternoon between Shnei Avov in 2 darknesses. Beis Shos Mechzelikan, Shnei Shos Mechzelikan, V'Shach L'Asiyos. Brilliant. 2.5 hours each way, 1 hour in the middle, and that's where we know that what the Kohen Talmud is brought at 2:30. Mosiv Rava asks a very strong question that we'll see in our Mishnah that what that on Erev Pesach we change the time. And if the pasuk is telling us specifically to be the common Talmud at 2:30, why are we going to adjust the time for our convenience? You never do such a thing. The fact that we adjust it for our convenience is a proof that really there's no fixed time. It says, if at 2:30 it's Devaisa, how can you change it if the Torah says so? The minute it gets dark, you can start being the common Talmud. From 12 or 12:30. And he translates, Beinu Arbaim, you can say, if I say to you, between east and west, you can say, the middle point between east and west, between that wall and that wall, put this table. So I could be saying to you, put it exactly in the middle, or I could say to you, anywhere between that wall and that wall. So Rav explains, Beinu Arbaim means any time in the afternoon. So in that Torah, you can bring it from 12:30 till 6 o'clock. The rest of the year, they can the dom and the dovois. There's many in the dom and the dovois. Which we're going to darshan. The Gemara discuss this at great detail, but it's a simple drasha. The pasuk says, "Oleo." That's the words of the pasuk inside it. You should bring the korban tamid. The simple translated word hashlomim means the korban shlomim. The word hashlomim can also mean from the word shleimus, completion. Hashlem, finish all the korbanos on the first korban tamid, not on the second. So you're not allowed to bring any korbanos on the second tamid. So therefore, since you've got the dom and the davos, so wait another 2 hours to give people a chance to bring the korbanos. We add another hour, but you got to also roast it. Shabbos, you can't roast on Shabbos. So we have no choice but to do it at 6:30. Because of Erev Pesach, which is Erev Shabbos, we have no choice but to make it even earlier at 6:30. And that's how we pass this again, very briefly. The Korban Tamid Min HaTorah can be brought from what time to what time? 6. Normally we wait 2 hours because of the fact they want to give chance to the non-Davos for gifts to the Beis Mikdash. On the Pesach, we do 1 hour earlier because of the fact that to bring the Korban Pesach, and on the Pesach, which is Erev Shabbos, we do an extra hour to give people time to also roast it. Now, why can't you roast the Korban Pesach on Shabbos? There's a Rashi over here which I can't tell you how many buckets of ink have been literally poured. Rashi said, Slias Pesach Shabbos. If you got his mamish by me, it's the same line as where we're up to. Roasting is for the sake of a person. And also you've got the option to roast before Shabbos. And everybody gets very upset. First of all, roasting Korban Pesach is a mitzvah. It's not tzorech hedyot. It's an actual proper mitzvah. Say to Yehuda because it's tzorech hedyot. And also other things that can be done with Boydun, we pass that you're allowed to be doing Shabbos. And there are different explanations given into Rashi. But right, so the halacha is we don't roast. More actually discussing later why we don't roast the Korban Pesach on Shabbos. But right, because we don't roast the Korban Pesach on Shabbos, therefore you have to on Friday. You have to give you more time. Okay. Tanu Rabban. The way we do it on a weekday, kach sidurei b'Shabbos. That's what we do on the Shabbos day. Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva imer kisidurei b'Erev Pesach like we do on Erev Pesach. The way Mr. Chabamga used to like to say it is used to say like this: put a pin in this brisa because we're going to discuss it for a long time. In other words, this brisa is very cryptic. It doesn't say clearly what it means. The Gemara brings 3 different mahalachim what the brisa means. So we need to keep referring back to the brisa, so it's say you could highlight it or something. But basically speaking, we already did the third chart. That was Rava's, by the way. The third chart of the page number 3 is Rava's explanation that you're allowed to do it from 12 noon. It shows you a picture of the sun at 12 noon midday, getting a bit darker. And then it shows you on the weekdays and everything else. So up to chart number 4 in this thing. Right. So we've got machlokes between who and who, Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel. And the question is, what is the brisa talking about? That means they don't explain themselves clearly. And where should you have is run out of charts? It's just think right. Yeah, no, it's means I don't have, so you have to. No, it's fine. Me and Chaim will share. Right. Okay, Tanu Rabban. Right. Yes, there's a faher. His homework is to summarize, and afterwards, what you're going to do is you're going to get the chart without anything filled in the middle, just the outside, and then you have to fill it in. That's the
Prize
faher.
you give the share for the rest of the year.
What?
What's the prize?
Hot water. Says the Gemara, "My koma, my achikoma." The way you do it on Erev Pesach, what is that on Erev Pesach normally? What hour?
6.5. No.
On a weekday, 7.5. Very good. Whatever you would do on the 7.5 on the weekday, kach sidui b'Shabbos b'Erev Pesach. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel. Says Rabbi Shmuel, whatever you do on the weekday, you do on the Shabbos, which is actually the same as our Mishnah. There's no difference between the weekday and the Shabbos. Both of them you do at 7.5. Just like you do on Erev Pesach, which is Erev Shabbos, when do you bring the Common Tummy then? 6.5. So too on Shabbos. That means like this. According to Rabbi, everybody agrees on a normal day, 8.5. Everybody agrees that on a normal Erev Pesach, 7.5. Everybody agrees on the no Erev Pesach, which is Erev Shabbos, 6.5. They argue about an Erev Pesach, which is a Shabbos. Erev Pesach, which is a Shabbos, is a machlokes Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shmuel says you do it at 7.5, and Rabbi Akiva says that you do it at 6.5. They argue between, which our Mishnah, which says Ben B'Choy, Ben B'Shabbos, do it 7.5, is like Rabbi Shmuel, not like Rabbi Akiva. Says the Gemara, but what is the Yisroel machlokes? What is the logic behind it? The Musaf and Kedin Wazichen Kamifligi. Rashi tells us the Korban Musaf was always brought before Chatzos. Why by Chatzos? Why was the Korban Musaf brought by Chatzos? The answer is, let's see a little bit of Rashi. Okay. Rashi says like this. Here. It says like this. Tva Yom b'Yomo. The Korban Musaf, it always says Dva Yom b'Yomo. Bring it on its day. Day is always referring to morning. Boike means morning. Day means midday. So Korban Musaf was bought generally midday. That's when the Korban Musaf was bought. Now, by the Bozichin, it says b'Yom HaShabbos Yarchen. That the Korban Tomit, the Lechem Aponim was brought Yom HaShabbos. It says twice the Lechem Aponim. So we hold the Lechem Aponim and come after the Musaf. Let's see it inside again. But my Komifliki, there's a first wide land. Musafin Kidin Vazich Komifliki. Rabbi Shmuel Sava Musafin Kidin Vazich. You always have to do Musaf first. What time are you going to the Korban Musaf? We said midday. On Shabbos, midday, we'll say 12 o'clock.
6.5.
No, 6.5 is not midday. Midday is 6, it's 12 o'clock. That's Korban Tomit. I'm talking about Musaf now. That's what I call Musaf. The Musaf you do at midday. That means by midday you finish your Korban Musaf. Ubazichin b'Sheva. Bazichin, after the Korban Musaf, you brought the Bazichin. That means the Lechem Aponim was done after the Korban Musaf. Basically like this. What you would do is like this. You would bring the Korban Musaf, and then you would take the 2 spoons of frankincense from the Shulchan, pour them onto the Mizbeach, and divide out the bread. How much bread would every Kohen get? A piece size. And what must you not say? Come on, whoever remembers this should definitely get hot water. What? Come on. Pesachim daf Beis Amud Beis. What mustn't you say? It's not if God's going to help you, it's the wrong one. Was a Kohen that said, I got like the tail of a lizard. What did they do about him? They checked him out and they found that he wasn't a Yuchasdik Kohen. So everybody's again, till Chatzos you gave out the Korban Musaf. You did the Korban Musaf. From 6 o'clock to 7 of Shoy's Banis, which means basically from 12 till 1, you were busy giving out giving out the bread, sacrificing the frankincense, the lavoina, and putting out the new bread. It's all taken out. The Sheva, again, so afterwards, you do the commentary, you go into commentary. If you have a Sava, Bazichim could be the Musafin. He always the Bazichim came first. And the Gemara says, Yuma, it's a special drasha, Chukka, it's a Shava, Chukka, so you do it earlier. So Bazichim, Bechamish, Lechem Aponim, Bazichim means Lechem Aponim. Umusafin b'sheish, Rava did the top of b'sheish shomechza. That means like this. Everybody agrees. We'll do it very quickly again. Everybody agrees normally Kol Tomid is when? 8.5. Erev Pesach it is 7.5. Erev Pesach which is Erev Shabbos is 6.5. Erev Pesach which is the Shabbos v'achlik b'shmol v'kiva. Rabbi Akiva. Now here the Gemara says a very nice logic. Rashi says it. The Gemara doesn't say it. On Shabbos would people bring the dom and the dovos? No, why not?
Money.
You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to bring the dom and dovos. The dom and dovos means kabbonos. You can't bring a shlom and an oilon. You're not allowed to bring a shlom. You're not allowed to bring your own private shlom on Shabbos. We started off saying that every time you come on Tomid, you always had a double-edged sword. Too early, you lose out the chance of the dom and dovos. Too late, you might miss it. But over here on Shabbos, the earlier the better. There's no dom and dovos. So therefore, Rabbi Shmuel said, sorry, Akiva said, do it 6.5. The earlier the better. What are you going to lose out the dom and the dovos? There is no the dom and dovos on Shabbos. So do it 6.5. Rabbi Shmuel said, no, we can't do it 6.5. Why not? Because the musaf will take you till the midday. And then you have to do the lechem upon him. And they've got 7.5. So there's 4 cases. Normal day Korban Tomid on Erev Pesach, Korban Tomid on Erev Pesach, which is Erev Shabbos, and the Korban Pesach, which is a Shabbos itself. They all agree on the first 3. Normal Korban Tomid 8.5, Erev Pesach 7.5, and it's Erev Shabbos 6.5. They argue it's on the Shabbos itself. Rabbi Shmuel says do it 7.5 because I've got no choice because of the fact that I have to bring the musaf and the bazichim first. Rabbi Akiva says, yes, I bring the Bazichin earlier, I do it 6.5. Oh, what about the Dom and the Dovis? What's the answer?
No.
Why isn't it Dom? Because it's Shabbos. Very good. Okay. Masking for Rava. I'm not going to go into Rava so much because it's a big problem. Midu Rabbi Akiva, because that means that we have to now fit it into the words of the Brisa. Rava says these words don't fit into the words of the Brisa. And in fact, even Rava's answer doesn't fit in so well into the words of the Brisa. Rashi himself and Tais himself both asked that what did Rava gain so much over his explanation? Because the words of the Brisa were very cryptic, as we said. It doesn't say clearly what they're arguing about. So Rava and Baya both add to the Brisa to explain, and they both ask for what's going on. It's not really the words of the Brisa. It didn't say a word about Erev Shabbos. It talked about Erev Pesach without mentioning Erev Shabbos. If you look at the words of Kiva, because it's Pesach, it didn't say anything about Erev Shabbos. So Rabbi Kiva never breathed the word of Erev Shabbos. So why are you adding it into the words? Says the Gemara, he didn't say the words of Erev Shabbos. And again, Rava agrees with Abaya on what they're arguing. Very briefly, because later on it's a different chat. That means they all agree in all common Torah, they all agree in everything else. They're only arguing on Erev Pesach, which is a Shabbos. So Gemara says like this: like a normal Korban Pesach Tomid is 8.5. That means normal 8. Rabbi Shmuel says that on Erev Pesach, which is a Shabbos, we don't do it 7.5. We do it 8.5. We don't do it 7.5. We do it 8.5. Again, we said. Normal Korban Tomid is 8.5. Pesach 7.5. Pesach should have Shabbos 6.5. Comes out Rabbi Shmuel and says, but it's Pesach, which is a Shabbos, goes back to 8.5. We'll explain in a minute that you can't roast it on Shabbos. This year you will not be able to. Mr. Shemashech will come. We'll shecht it on Shabbos. We'll roast it on Shabbos. Now, what happens to meat if it's been slaughtered and not roasted? It goes bad. So Rabbi Shmuel says we've got no choice. We have to be in the Korban Tomid later in order to have less time for the meat to go bad. Like a normal Pesach, which is 7.5. My sister dictoni ben b'chol ben b'Shabbos Rabbi Akiva. So Mishnah is going like Rabbi Akiva. But my kamiflagi b'michva b'osel kamiflagi, with the meat going bad. Rabbi Shmuel said v'chashin b'michva b'so get hot and bad. Akiva said v'loichashin b'michva b'so we're not chayshash. So it comes out between Abaya and Rava there's very little difference. They both agree that Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva agree in 3 out of the 4 scenarios. And Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva are only arguing about one scenario, that is Erev Pesach, which is a Shabbos. According to Abaya, according to Rabbi Shmuel, it's 7.5. According to Rabbi Akiva, it is 6.5. According to Rava, according to Rabbi Shmuel, it is 8.5. And according to Rabbi Akiva, it is 7.5. So you memorize all that? Yes. So, what? No, because we're talking about the Korban Pesach. No Shabbos. He says every Erev Pesach, which is a Shabbos, you go to 8.5. Because the meat of the Korban Pesach will go bad. Korban Tomid, you'll shecht it and put on Mizbeach, it won't go bad. The Korban Pesach will go bad. Normally, what would happen is you'd shecht the Korban Pesach and immediately go and roast it. But when it's a Shabbos, you're not going to go and roast it straight away. You go to Shech to call on Pesach, you're not going to roast it for another few hours. So therefore you have to wait some more time. Says the Gemara, according to Rabbi, that we're not according to Rabbi Akiva, that we're not chayshish for top of Milches and Beis. If we're not chayshish for going bad, now the B'Sheish Mechza. Let's go even earlier, 6.5, because there's no Nadam and Davis. And says, well, because Sava Musafin Kivin Zichin. Well, probably what we mentioned before that the Lechem Aponim comes after the Musaf. Obviously, Musaf B'Sheish, Mazich B'Sheva. What do we talk about B'Sheva Mechza? You've got to be in the Kol Musaf. Then you have to bring the Lechem Aponim, which is the position, and then afterwards go to the common Tomid. By the time you finish, it's going to be 7.5. Okay. So we've got now Bar and Bob agree. Now, Maskif Lavaba Ba'ola, Midi Kesidu B'Chol, Kachsidu B'Shabbos, Veva Pesach, Tiv Rabbi Shmuel Ketoni. Rabbi Shmuel never talked about on the Erev Pesach, which is the Shabbos. Rabbi Shmuel just said the words, weekdays the same as Shabbos. So Rabbi Shmuel never mentioned about Erev Pesach. Kachsidu B'Shabbos Tomo Ketoni. He didn't mention Erev Pesach. So how can you fit it into the words? According to Rabbi Ba'ula, they're arguing about a different question altogether. They're arguing about what? They're arguing about a normal Shabbos, not Pesach. Normal Shabbos, every Shabbos of the year, when should be Common Tomid. Our Mishnah says, our Mishnah doesn't talk about it. Our Mishnah does not talk about the Common Tomid during the year. Our Mishnah talks about a Common Tomid on a weekday, a Common Tomid just Erev Pesach, which is a Shabbos, a weekday, and a common Tomid on the Erev Pesach, which is an Erev Shabbos. It does not talk about a common Tomid on a normal Shabbos. Now, what would you say logically? Where would you bring a common Tomid on normal Shabbos?
There's no Davis.
There's no Davis.
There is Musaf.
There is Musaf. Oh.
Depending on when the position.
So either 7, so you say 7.5 because there's no Davis, no problem. But since other Shabbos you do it 8.5, so the other man says, no, we want to keep every day similar, we don't confuse people. Says Shmuel says always 8.5. Like Erev Pesach, which is 7.5. Our Mishnah goes according to everybody because our Mishnah never started talking about it. Our Mishnah was only talking about Erev Pesach Shabbos, but not about a normal Shabbos. Says the Gemara, "B'may kamifliki." The Gemara says the Talmud is kamifliki. Rabbi Shmuel Sava goes in on Shabbos atuchol. If you're going to bring it on the Shabbos at 7.5, what will happen is you'll come to bring it on a weekday at 7.5. And if you come to bring it on a weekday at 7.5, what will happen? You'll lose out the Talmud. Oh, you'll lose out the Talmud. Rabbi Shmuel Sava goes in on Shabbos atuchol. Rabbi Kiva Sava goes vinon. Pray the Gemara. Goes vinon nevdechul. If Rabbi Kiva says that we want to do it early because Shabbos is then the Dom and the Dovos, Nev Day, let's do it at 6.5. Says the Gemara, Gazidim Nev Day b'Sheish Umechzet. Pesava Musafin Kevin Vazichin Musafin b'Sheish Vazichin b'Sheva V'Lo Tom b'Sheva Mechzet. So we have a three-way machlokas. What is the machlokas of again? We have a three-way machlokas. What is the machlokas of Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva? That chart, the one which has got all the things, fits it in very, very nicely. There are 4 cases of which they only argue perhaps on 2. That means nobody argues that Korban Tomid on a normal weekday is 8.5. Nobody argues that Erev Pesach, which is an Erev Shabbos, is 6.5. That nobody argues. Those 2 cases they never argue about. If you look at the columns, normal Korban Tomid and an Erev Pesach, Erev Shabbos, that they don't argue. According to Abai and Rava, we should argue about Erev Pesach, which is a Shabbos. Abai says, according to Rabbi Shmuel, we go for 7.5. According to Rabbi Akiva, we go for 6.5 because why not? We might as well gain. There's no Nadam and Davis. And the machlekas is whether we do the musafin before the masichin. Or masichin before the musafin. Which way around we do the musafin and masichin? That's the machlekas. According to Rabbi, according to Rava, the machlekas again is exactly the same situation. But according to Rabbi Shmuel, we go to 8.5 because we were scared that the Korban Pesach will go moldy. And according to Rabbi Akiva, we'll go to the 7.5. He's not worried about the meat going bad. Oh, why not do it even earlier? Because we've got the Musachin first. And according to Rabbi Ba'ola, they're not arguing about Erev Pesach, which is a Shabbos. They're arguing about a normal Shabbos, every single Shabbos of the year. According to Rabbi Akiva, you go to 6.5 because there's no Nadam on the Tavis. According to Rabbi Shmuel, we want to always stick to the we always want to stick. So we go to the 7.5. According to Rabbi Akiva, we go to the 7.5. Sorry, according to Rabbi Akiva, we go to 7.5 because of no Nadam and Davis. And according to Rabbi Shmuel, we go to the 8.5 because we want to keep Shabbos like any other day. No, then they like our Mishnah. No, like our Mishnah 7.5. Take it. This is what may say. Now we have two brises which discuss the halachas of Korban Pesach, and we have to work out how that fits in according to these Abayim. Tomid kol hashana kula, tomid the whole year round, kol kelechosoi, when it's bought in its normal way, nishchat b'shmona mechza v'kol teshon mechza. And we'd never be the Korban Tomid in its normal manner. It's 8.5 to 9.5, like we said in our Mishnah. Uberva Pesach, when it's Pesach, nishchat b'shava mechza v'kol b'shmona mechza. We do 7.5 and 8.5, which is also, by the way, exactly like our Mishnah. And we do it earlier to give people a chance for the Korban Pesach. Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva, you do it Pesach, you do it like Erev Pesach. It's good because we're talking about a Shabbos. Sorry, I missed out a line. Sorry. If it falls on a Shabbos, if Erev Pesach is a Shabbos, it's like Erev Pesach is on a Monday. Meaning, just like if Erev Pesach is on a Monday, what time would you be in the Korban Tomid? 7.5. So too, Erev Pesach on the Shabbos being until 7.5. And we can do it Erev Pesach. You do it like Erev Pesach means he doesn't agree. Well, then we know exactly what he's saying because it doesn't make any sense. Like Erev Pesach, it is Erev Pesach. We just don't know what kind of halach, but we don't know what he's saying. But we know one thing is that Bishmol says 7.5. Abai makes sense because Abai says the Guntra Bishmol is 7.5. And Rabbi Kiva argues and says what? 6.5, right? Because it's according to Rav, what does Rabbi Shmuel say? 8.5. And over here, clearly, Rabbi Shmuel says 7.5. Don't say like a Monday. Like any normal Monday, not a Korban Erev Pesach Monday. Not like Erev Pesach on a Monday, but like any other Monday of the year, which is 8.5. And then that way the price doesn't contradict me because I hold the according to Rabbi Shmuel is 8.5. It is complicated. If you get the charts in front of you, it should be very clear. Again, the price is according to Rabbi Shmuel that if Erev Pesach is a Shabbos, it's like a Monday. So according to Rabbi, it's very good because he says that indeed it's 7.5, and Kiva says 6.5. According to Rabbi Rabbi, that says according to Rabbi Shmuel it's 8.5. What do you mean it's like a Monday? It's not like a Monday. A Monday Erev Pesach would be 7. Answers more like a normal Monday, not an Erev Pesach Monday. And here we have the most fascinating machlokes, Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi asks a very, very simplistic but very powerful question. Anybody want to guess the question? If I wanted to say to that, if Pesach is a Shabbos, it's like any day of the week. Which day of the week would I have chosen? No, if I say that Pesach is a Shabbos, the halacha is like as if it's not Shabbos, like any day of the week. Sunday. If I say again, if Pesach is a Shabbos, says Rabbi Shmuel, there is no difference. It's like a weekday. Again, if Pesach is a Shabbos, says Rabbi Shmuel, according to Rabbi, even according to Rabbi, if Pesach is a Shabbos, we treat Pesach no different from any weekday, and we do it at 7.5. Right? That is what Rabbi Shmuel tells us. What do we do? Normal Korban Tomid is 8.5. Pesach 7.5. Rabbi Shmuel says that even if Pesach is a Shabbos, we treat it like a weekday. Says Rabbi Shmuel in his words, like a Monday. Why did he come up with a Monday? Says Rashi, it was random. Says Rashi, I once heard an explanation. There's a famous principle, you should all know it again. Lo adu roish, lo badu pesach, aval abadu shvus. Does anybody know what that means? Lo adu roish, Rosh Hashanah will never be a Sunday, Wednesday, Friday. Pesach will never be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But Shavuos will only be a Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. Says Rashi, so I heard that the reason he said if Erev Pesach is a Shabbos, it's like Erev Pesach is a Monday, because he didn't want to say it's like Erev Pesach is a Sunday, because Erev Pesach will never be a Sunday, because we just said Lo Badu Pesach, so Pesach can never be a Monday. Pesach can never be a Monday, so he couldn't say, again, what's Rabbi Shmuel? The essence of what he's saying is if Erev Pesach is a Shabbos, it's as if Erev Pesach is a weekday, meaning it's 7.5, we don't change it. Says Rashi, I heard, because since Pesach can never be a Monday, he didn't want to say Erev Pesach is a Sunday, because there's no such thing as Erev Pesach being on a Sunday. And therefore, he had to choose the first next day, which is Monday. Says Rashi, this is rubbish. Why is it rubbish? Rashi says it's rubbish. You heard the Pshat. Good, explain better. Oh, it's not a fixed calendar. Why? Because when the Beis Hamikdash was standing, how did they establish Yom Tov? With the Eidim. And if you establish it by Eidim, you can't come up with the Re'adu Rosh and Re'adu Pesach and all the rest of it. Once you've got Eidim, whenever Eidim come along, it could change. Pesach could come up. Says Tosfos, no, Rashi's wrong. That even when they were Mekadesh al Pi Eidim, and this comes up, you can't imagine. I saw that somebody wrote a whole sefer called the Magli Ashot or something, and he managed chapters on this. And he says that they would, because, for example, I tell you a big problem. If Rosh Hashanah would, if we do, one of the reasons we don't want Rosh Hashanah to be a Wednesday or Friday is because we don't want Yom Kippur to be a Friday or Sunday. Because if Yom Kippur is a Friday or Sunday, you'd have 2 days we can't cook, which is very difficult, right? Because you can't cook at all. So the Gemara says there are special reasons why they didn't. So it says Tosfos that even when they had Eidim, they would manipulate the system that they never had Adu and Badu and all the rest. It's very interesting. It's just an interesting reference. They would manipulate the system. So what they would do is they would delay the Eidim or they would work it out and they would find a system that would work. They have the billion of dollars, etc., etc.
So the calendar was in the sense always.
No, it wasn't completely fixed in the sense that we're having today that we can tell me now what next Rosh Chodesh is going to be. But there were certain things that they put in place.
No, it still answers up Rashi. It still answers up the question.
What?
That there wasn't a fixed calendar.
Yes.
And therefore he chose Monday. Yes, it's true that it can't be Sunday even then. Mamaisa.
No, again, Rashi said that. No, Rashi says that he chose it random. Says Rashi, I heard the explanation because they bad with Pesach. Says Rashi, I don't like that explanation. Why not? Because they were working, because it's basically just standing, otherwise not being in common Pesach. You're not being in common Tom, if there's no basically. Says this verse that no, you can still okay, you want to read it through the second thesis. Okay. Says well, one more. Meisei Cholius is the Shabbos. Pesach is a Shabbos. Consider Kol Hashana Kula. It's like the whole year round. Rabbi Shmuel. Kibbutz Imer. Consider Be'eva Pesach. According to Rava, it's fine because Rava. Why according to Rava is it okay? Let's get it clear that because he said because Rabbi Shmuel says clearly consider Kol Hashana Kula like all year round. All year round, what time do you be in the common Talmud? 8.5. So that's what Rabbi Shmuel is saying that when Shabbos is when the Pesach is a Shabbos, bring it to 8.5, which is exactly what Rava said. It doesn't mean like all year round. It means like any other year. Just like any other year. You bring Erev Pesach when? When do you bring a common Talmud Erev Pesach? 7.5. So too when it's a Shabbos is 7.5. Okay, when we consider Erev Pesach, Shabbos, which is 6.5. Now we're finished with this very, very complicated Gemara. And now it gets much easier, though it does get hard in a couple of daf time, but this is very easy. So let's very simply. We've got 4 different chances. It wasn't so bad, this. Baruch Hashem. I know, Baruch Hashem went very well. I was actually quite nervous about this. Spent some time on it, getting clear in my head again and again. I wrote my own chart, didn't work. But if you've got the charts in front of you, it's very, very straightforward. There are 4 different days of the year. Common Talmud on a weekday is when? 8.5. On Erev Pesach, 7.5. On it when it's a Erev Pesach, which is Erev Shabbos, 6.5. When it's a Shabbos, it's a Machlokas, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva, according to Bible Rava, exactly what they say. Okay. Now we're going to a little bit the reasoning behind it. How do we know that you're not allowed to bring any karbonos before the Talmud Shashachar? Talmud Loima. The pasuk there is the beginning of Tzav, and it says that you should light the fire, and after you light the fire, bring up the Korban Talmud. So therefore, that Torah teaching you explicitly that what? Light the fire and bring the Korban Talmud. You can't bring a Shlomim or Toido before. Light the fire, bring a Korban Oila. Now the Gemara asks a kasha, Ha'oila doesn't tell us which Oila it is. Maybe it's a different Oila, maybe it's Oila as the Dover. Very the Gemara, my Talmud. Amarava Ha'oila, the Oila. Oila Vishoina. The Oila always means the special one. Why is Korban Talmud the most special? So there's different explanations. Either because it's the first one that we're told about in Parshas Pinchas. If you look at Parshas Pinchas, right, the end of Parshas Pinchas, you've got all the Korbanos. The first one is which? Korban Talmud, which we lay in every Rosh Chodesh. Alternatively, because they bought it by before when the Mishkan was standing, was the first Korban they bought. But whatever it may be, Ha'olah means the Olah. So again, the Torah says, light the fire, bring the Olah. What is the Olah? The Korban Talmud. So if you want to bring a Korban before the Olah, you cannot. How do you know not to have beginning close afterwards? My Talmud, how do you know from the fact it says that means the pasuk says on the oila you should bring the shlomim. So it says light the fire. It's the same pasuk. Light the fire, bring the oila, and then bring the shlomim. My Talmud, Omar Abai, oleo shlomim. Bring on this carbon oila shlomim. But don't bring on its friend, meaning the last one of the day, shlomim. Again, this is light a fire, bring the oil and bring on it shlomim. I can still see Ian, you can hear me?
It went, it went, it's fine. Yeah, you're back on.
Sorry. Okay. So again, the pasuk says, light the fire, bring on it the oil, and bring over on it the shlomim. Meaning on it bring the shlomim, but not on the last oil of the day. So Obva says to me, if that's the case, don't bring shlomim, but you can't bring oilas, because the Torah says, bring on it, light the fire, bring on it an oila, and then on that bring a shlomim, and without shirt, on that bring a shlomim, but don't bring a shlomim on other things. So if that's the case, you won't be allowed to bring shlomim after the common Talmud of the afternoon. But how do you know you're not allowed to bring common oila after the afternoon? That means, where do you see not allowed to bring anything, not just shlomim? How do you not allowed to bring anything after the common Talmud? Elo mavova hashlomim oleo hashlim kol hakodesh kulam, which we had before. Hashlomim, because the word shleim was to finish. So the Torah says like this: you light the fire, bring on it the oila, then afterwards finish everything. Finish everything on the oila and nothing else after. Now a bit of a question whether to carry on. We'll do a little bit, okay. Because the more continues, got quite a long daf tomorrow, even though it's starting a new topic. What's I'm trying to think, what's the date? Monday. Maybe, you know what, we'll start a new topic tomorrow. It's a shame to start a topic now and then start in the middle. Yeah, I think it's agree. Yeah, it's good to stop. It's a lot. Okay, very good. Okay, shkoyach. Any questions, could ask questions. So as I said, in a couple of days' time, I'm going to give out the chart without the inside, and then you could just fill in Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva, the 6 different opinions.
You said you don't mind leaving early, right?
I said if I don't protest, I do mine. Yeah. Yes, I hear. That means they always had spare good evening. Yeah, you're right. It's not very much. It's I was wondering. It's not very much. But try like this, because you always have time after Common Talmud. It's 8.5, 9.5. It's 2.5 hours. Now you've got. Well, that's impossible to understand.